Hello. Okay, are we live? We says live. We're live. Okay. I don't really have any notes. When I first started doing these channel videos, I had written a bunch of ideas for movies I wanted to get into, and I didn't necessarily do all of them yet. But this is kind of a departure because instead of just pointing out the plot holes of existing movies, I'm more concerned with like how much well, okay, taking two different discussions, fiction versus nonfiction for starters, and how much movies need to be real to be believable, right? Like when you're a child, you don't necessarily pick up on all the plot holes in something like Star Wars, right? And so the movie goes and it's just fine, and you don't understand why adults are criticizing Star Wars, the greatest movie ever, right? I mean, and then you watch it again 20 years later, and oh my God, this and this and this and this and certain parts you might be laughing at. This has been documented, right? How people like who adored Luke Skywalker when they were 6 or 7 now are identifying more with Han Solo, right? Like I'm gonna turn this car around if you don't shut up, right? you know. This is like 10 minutes into the trip, and Luke Skywalker's already getting a hitchhike your way back home speech, right? So okay, and I forget what film it was, but I had a friend in college way back when we weren't very close friends. We had been introduced maybe a year or 2 years before we had this conversation. So we knew each other for a while, but we didn't like hang out a lot. And she, for lack of a better word, is even more analytical than I am, maybe. Okay, maybe more grounded, less suspension of disbelief in general. Does that make sense? And so we were talking about a movie, and I don't remember which one. And it was like super important to me. I was all fired up about it, and this was before I even thought about majoring in film or anything like that. It was just a casual conversation about movies, not we just got out of film class and we're all fired up kind of thing. It was not that. And it was and she just said like, well, who cares, it's just a movie. Like you watch it and then you go on about your day, and like, okay, and at the time it was like, well, okay, I can understand that about some entertainment, certain things. But then, like I said, if we put it in, it depends on if it's fiction or nonfiction, right? Because even if you watch Star Wars and you love Star Wars, deep down, you know that you can't use your mind to like move objects around and stuff, right? Even if you want to be a Jedi or you think you want to live by a Jedi code or whatever. Okay, but then again, but that code, takes in, old Asian philosophies about honor and that and duty or whatever, that they're still applicable to daily life, right? Do you want to be more like a Jedi or do you want to be more like a Sith? Again, you're not going to become a Sith if you think that you are one, but blah blah blah. But we're not, like I said, I don't even think it was Star Wars that we were discussing, but that's like a really easy one to lend itself to because people do have a cult-like religious fanaticism about this franchise, right? As opposed to pick any other action movie. I haven't heard of any franchise, cult franchise people, even say the Terminator. That was a super popular movie, but I don't know anybody who walks around like saying, I am a Terminator. Whereas like you will meet people at, comic conventions or something, maybe, who will tell you they are a Sith. Okay. Right. And like I said, that's not the point of this discussion though, but low hanging fruit, right? Okay. So, but I guess certain historical things have become easier to verify with the internet now. I mean, like, take a movie like Gandhi, where you have, you know, press clippings and things from the time, you know, and this is the English Empire at like the height or the end of the English Empire, British rule. So stuff is pretty well documented. So I don't know what they will have fudged and made up in a movie like Gandhi, as opposed to like a movie like The Doors, where the guy even admits he just made it up. You know, Oliver Stone thinks this sounded cool, so this is how it went, and then people watch it. And again, maybe it's not cult fanaticism because it's a rock band that has fans, but they're maybe not as devoted to the movie as they are to the band. But then they, you know, casual fans of the band see the movie and think these things really happen, and they're like, "Oh, Jim Morrison was crazy. He did this." And then someone who was actually there goes, "Well, he may have been crazy, but he never did that." You know, again, stuff that gets a little easier to verify when it's more recent history, not ancient history. You know, a third world country versus, you know, the United States in 1968. Like, you know, we're pretty sure we have the TV footage of what Jim Morrison did and didn't do, you know, in these cases. Whereas Gandhi, it might be a little more cloudy. PT 109, where they like took the back end and shoved it at the front, and took the front end and glorified it, or what, you know, just to make a puff piece about Kennedy, you know, things like that. So that's kind of anticlimactic to kind of put that out there in the first 6 minutes, but this isn't going to be a 30-minute video. And at least I try to get to the point. What else did I put in? Oh, Eat, Pray, Love. So anyway, yeah, I had just read that book recently. I found it in the park and thought, oh, I haven't, you know, read this. I'll read it. And then I see women like quoting it like on Facebook and stuff, and I never knew who that was, and then I would recognize the phrase and go, oh, that's the woman who wrote the book. But it's kind of funny that a lot of the quotes they attribute to her are actually things that other people in the book said. So almost all of her jokes and clever sayings and stuff are somebody else's jokes and clever sayings and, you know, bright ideas or whatever, revelations. They almost all come from the guy from Texas or the kid from the bike or whatever. So it's got, but then when I saw the movie, almost all of those got left out anyway, and they just turned it into a love story. And then instead of casting a guy who's 10 or 15 years older than her, they cast a guy who's actually younger than Julia Roberts. So like, when Hollywood gets a hold of it, we just want to make a, you know, rom-com. Oh, okay, never mind. Silly me for, you know, because I rented the movie. I had not seen the movie before reading the book. I had scrolled in the television and seen clips of it and kind of was like, maybe, and then something else would be on and I'd watch that instead. What I was going to say about, so I finally watched the movie after reading the book. So I'm one of the few that's read the book, I guess. But again, not going to go deep into that movie because there's no reason. Like I said, they took almost everything that was deep out of the book and dropped it and left it out of the movie anyway. So I don't know what rewrite you'd want to do there that would be, you know, as commercially viable 20 years later or whenever that came up. But the thing I was going to say about Ghostbusters, of course, is that I didn't watch the newest one, the Frozen one. I forget. I'm brain farting again, but I had written it down somewhere and I don't know where that is. Because like I said, I didn't really make any actual notes for this. I know I have some notes somewhere. And so if I find those, I might come back to it. Yeah, this is not it. But a lot of the stuff that's in, like, I don't know, the original Ray Parker song or whatever is kind of like not really actual ghosts. Like a lot, and then the actual plot of the original Ghostbusters, it's interdimensional god beings, not actual ghosts. But I guess the interdimensional gods are reanimating the ghosts or whatever, you know. So again, like, you know, how literally do we want to take this? You can make your head explode if you try to be over analytical. But at the same time, if you're under analytical and say, well, it's just a movie, who cares? Like I said, then our minds recoil as, creative people or whatever, wannabe writers or whatever, who might actually be watching this, all three of you. And so the main, what I was trying to say at the beginning is the main focus of this channel isn't just to make fun of movies. It's kind of identify where plot holes happen and how to avoid them and how to fix them and that kind of thing, so that your movie is more believable all the way through. Okay, see, I did have a point to all this. That, again, I kind of said most of it at the beginning, but I want to make sure that I say it again so that you see that I know what I'm talking about, at least that far. And what was the other one I said? I said The Doors, I said Gandhi, I said that, Ghostbusters. Oh, Indiana Jones. I had talked about Indiana Jones a couple times, and I think I forgot to mention a couple things. I was thinking about like the end of Last Crusade the other day, like riding off into the sunset. Also another one. Well, Sala wants camels for his brother, but then at the end they take off on horses. But didn't they just kill a whole bunch of Germans and Egyptians or something in the cave? Like, there's probably a bunch of vehicles sitting right out there that they could have taken instead, because I imagine riding on the desert for days on a horse would stink, and I don't know where you're going to find water, stuff like that. But, they have to have that romantic music blaring, and what's his name goes in the wrong direction, lost in his own museum. So it's funny, and it's epic Western ending, right? As opposed to everybody just jumps in a staff car and drives to the cafeteria or something. I don't know. Yeah, okay, so that was a kind of a babbling joke, but good enough for a video for today. And if anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to add them in the down below and all that.